Last winter I sat in my own front room in a coat, a woolly hat and a pair of fingerless gloves, watching my own breath go up in front of me. The heating was off because I couldn't afford to switch it on. And I'll tell you what went through my head. I spent 30 years underground digging the coal that kept this whole country warm, and I couldn't afford to heat one room of my own house. My name's Roy, I'm 70, Barnsley man, born and bred, 30 years down the pit, then whatever work there was after they shut it. My wife Betty passed 4 years back, so it were just me and the gas meter were winning. But I'm not telling you this from Barnsley, I'm telling you from a little town in Portugal where it's February and I've got the window open. How a bloke like me ended up here is a daft story, but it's a warm one. Let me tell it. Here's how it goes, being old and skint in England now, and nobody says it out loud, so I will. My pensions came to enough to get by once, but the energy bills didn't just go up, they doubled, and then doubled again, and a pension doesn't double to match. So you start doing sums you never thought you'd do. You heat one room and shut the doors on the rest of the house. You put another jumper on instead of the fire. You sit in the dark of an evening because the lights are costing all. And when it's really bad, you do the thing they've got a name for now, heat or eat, a hot meal or a warm room, not both. I'd worked since I was 15, hard graft, the kind that wears your knees and your back out by 60. And this was the thanks. Sat in my court, in the country I'd brought my body for, rationing the heating like it were wartime. I never said a word of it to our Lynn, my daughter. You don't. You tell her you're grand, but she knew, and it frightened her, me being cold like that at my age. It were Tommy that put the idea in me head, worked the same seam as me, 40 year back. He'd upped and moved to Portugal when his wife went, and he kept on at our Lynn that I ought to come out. Said his pension went twice as far. Said he'd not had the heating on proper in years, because he'd not needed it. Warm, he said, warm for nowt. I told him not to be so bloody daft. Portugal's for folk with money, for holidays, not for a retired collier from Barnsley who's never even had cause to use his passport. But that night, sat there in me coat, I thought, well, what have I actually got to lose? A cold house and a gas bill I can't pay. That's not much to hang on to. Mind, it weren't a simple thing to do. I'd never lived anywhere but that town. Everyone I knew were there, or in the churchyard, Betty included, and leaving her grave were harder than I'll let on. Lynn were torn in two, frightened of me freezing if I stopped, frightened of me being alone abroad if I went. But I did what a pitman does with a problem. I looked at it plain. On one side, another winter of heat or eat, and the one after that, till one of them finished me off. On the other, warm, fed and skint in the sun instead of skint in the cold. Put like that, there's no argument in it. So I found out how. Portugal lets you stop there if you've a steady pension coming in, and between my two, it were just enough. I sold what bits I had. I gave O'Lynn me father's clock, and I got on an aeroplane for the first time in my life at 70-year-old, terrified and saying nought about it. First few weeks, I thought I'd made a right fool of myself. There's an office you have to deal with out here, AIMA they call it, and it'd try the patience of a saint. Forms I couldn't read, queues, appointments that came to nought. I sat in a rented room in a country where I couldn't order a loaf of bread, thinking, 70 years old, Roy, and you've flung yourself to the far end of Europe on the say-so of Tommy. There were a night I nearly rang Lynn to fetch me home, but I didn't. Stubborn me, always were. And then it came right. I found a little flat in a town called Coimbra. Old stone, up a hill, nowt fancy. The rent were about €500, and the winter here's a soft thing, nothing like a Yorkshire one. But here's what got me, the thing I'd not felt in years. One evening it turned a bit nippy, and I switched the heater on. And I didn't do a sum first. I didn't weigh it against me tea. I just put it on, sat there warm with a full belly. And I'm not ashamed to say I had a bit of a moment about it. That were 1.5 years back. And I'll tell you how I live now, make of it what you will. I get up, I walk down into the old town, and I have me coffee outside, 80 cents that, and I have one every single day, a thing I never once let myself do at home. There's a market where the veg costs next to nowt, and it's better than out I had in England. I fell in with a few daft old expats, and a couple of locals put up with me murdering their language. I eat proper. I'm warm. That pension that we're drowning back home, out here it's got room to breathe, and so have I. I'll not pretend I don't miss things. I miss the club. I miss folk that talk like me. I miss being able to walk to Betty. That sits heavy some days. But I'm 71 now, and for the first time since I can remember, I'm not cold and I'm not frightened of the winter. For a Barnsley man, that's about as near to happy as it gets. I gave that country 30 years underground. I helped keep its lights on and its houses warm. And in the end, it couldn't keep me warm for one winter. I'm not bitter, well, not much. But I'll say this to any old lad or lass sat in their coat tonight, watching their breath, choosing between the fire and their tea. You worked your whole life. You shouldn't have to be cold. And you're not too old, and it's not too late to go and be warm. If this struck a chord, stop with me a while. There's more of these coming. Now, it's a grand day, and me coffee's going cold. Ta-ra.